Bry's Comics.
In this video, we're talking about two amazing opportunities. The first of which is Amazing Fantasy number 15 and a 6.5 restored. And in just a moment, we're going to talk about all the potential outcomes of this book. A really helpful video with lots of information that I think will be really helpful to a lot of people about the whole process of comic book CPR or crack press, resubmit, and restoration removal. I was going to have this video be just about all the ins and outs of restoration removal, but it's a little bit too nuanced to do that. So this video is just going to be about this particular book. And I think from that, you can extract a whole bunch of helpful information about restoration removal in general. The second amazing opportunity is your chance to own the rarest Marvel exclusive in history, the Bry's Comics Virgin Edition of Edge of Spider-Verse #1 by the marvelous Mirka Andolfo. Just check out this cover art. I am incredibly pleased with the way that this turned out, and this book is going to be limited to one copy. That's right, folks. It's a 1 of 1. I'm a little bit excited. I don't know if you can tell. Huge fan of Miles. I got my Miles here. I got my Gwen here. We got Into the Spider-Verse coming out very soon. I'm a huge fan, and I'm incredibly excited to offer this 1 of 1, the first ever Marvel exclusive limited to one copy. So one virgin copy and 250 trade dress copies individually numbered by CGC. Stay tuned to the end of the video if you want all the details. This is only available through the new Grail Box of Mystery, which is live now at bryscomics.com. It's limited to 258 boxes, 9 grand prizes. I'm keeping one box and then 249 other boxes. The grand prizes are, let's talk about these prizes. Hulk 181 in an 8.5, the first Wolverine. Giant size X-Men #1 in a 9.4, that bad boy right there. Avengers #1 in a 2.5. Ultimate Fallout 4 in a 9.8, first print, first appearance of Miles Morales. Werewolf by Night #32 in a 7.5, the first appearance of Moon Knight. Edge of Spider-Verse 2, the first appearance of Spider-Gwen, first print signed. And Fantastic Four 49 in a 7.0, the first appearance of Galactus. And Marvel Spotlight #5 in a 3.0, the first appearance of Ghost Rider. And then one lucky winner will get the Edge of Spider-Verse #1, limited to one copy. And then in addition to that, each box has a 50-50 chance of receiving an extra slab valued at between $40 and $100. All the details are live now at bryscomics.com, and stay tuned to the end of the video for more details. But before we hop any further, I want to remind you we have a monthly giveaway here on the YouTube channel. If you subscribe, comment, and like this video, you're entered to win that. And if you head over to bryscomics.com and sign up for the newsletter, you're entered to win a free slab each and every month. That's also where you get first access to new collections, new inventory that comes through the shop, sometimes grails like this. And if you use code COLLECT10, you get 10% off all in-stock items. And lastly, follow me on Instagram, where I oftentimes will post grails like this for trade first as an incentive to incentivize people to follow me, on all the different channels. So hit me up over on Instagram as well. So let's talk about the history of this book, like where it came from, how I came into possession of it, and then we'll talk about all the possible outcomes. And I want to get your opinion on what you think we should do in this situation. Also, I want to mention first off that it is available for sale as is. So we're going to offer this for sale for $45,000 in cash or $55,000 in trade. And I'm going to go over all the information. You can decide for yourself if you're in the market for an Amazing Fantasy 15, if those prices are a good entry point for you into this book. There's some real opportunity there. Where we came up with that price of $45,000 cash or $55,000 in trade has to do with Blue Label prices. So typically with a restored book, what I usually do when pricing a restored book is I just cut the Blue Label price in half. So if it was selling for $1,000 and it's restored, I'll put it up for $500. Typically, there's a lot of nuance to that. It depends on the type of restoration. It depends on the book. So sometimes a restored book can get more than 50% of the Blue Label price, depending on if the restoration can be removed. That's like the #1 thing. If it's the type of restoration like the edges are trimmed or there's piece fill or stuff like that, where there's absolutely, no removing it without completely destroying the book, in that case, the restoration can take a hit on the price even more. Sometimes a restored book will be like 80% less than the Blue Label price. So for a 6.5, the most recent sale was over $90,000 for a Blue Label. label. So if you went with the 50% rule, $45,000 would be a fair price. The last sale of a 6.5 blue was $91,355, and that was in March of 2023. This book, however, has potential to get up to a 7.5 restored and a 7.5 restored book, because this book has not been pressed or cleaned. The last sale was $117,000 in March of 2023. So half of 117 would be, closer to the $60,000 mark. So $45,000 cash and $55,000 in trade is a totally justifiable price for this book as is. And then worst case scenario, if this book were to come back a 4.0 blue, which I do think that is the worst case scenario for this book, would be a 4.0 after the restoration has been removed. The last sale of a 4.0 was $37,500. So there's definitely risk involved with this. And what we're going to do is offer it up for trade now or sale. And if we get that, great. And if not, we are going to send this book in to have the restoration removed. So how this happened is a really close friend of mine reached out to me and sent me the post for this book on Instagram and said, hey, I'm thinking about buying this book. I just wanted to run it by you. Do you think that this is a good purchase? So I went back and forth with him for a long time. I said, you got to get more pictures. You got to get better pictures. And that's one of the hardest things about this book and restoration in general is it's really hard to get good pictures of restoration through a CGC case with cameras. Cameras aren't as good as the human eyes. When I'm looking at this book and I have my camera right there, the camera does not show what my eyes see. It's just really hard to get those two things to match up. After going back and forth for about a day, I said, man, this is a really good opportunity. I think you should jump on this book. I think you should buy it. And he said, well, what if we went in halves on it? And I said, absolutely, let's do it. Like, I'm glad you said that. Like, if he wasn't going to buy it, I was going to buy it and take a shot at this thing. So we both went in halves. So neither of us right now are in a position to buy a $50,000 book. I certainly am not. So the intention going into this was to buy it to generate a little bit of revenue so that we can buy an Amazing Fantasy 15. That's what's so funny about it is I think that is, the end goal for both me and my friend is to get a really good presenting blue label copy of Amazing Fantasy 15. So before we hop any farther into the possible outcomes of this, let's turn the camera around and I'll get a really close, in-depth look of this actual book. First things first, just take a look at how gorgeous this book looks just as is. It's got this awesome date stamp right here, which says June 8th, 1962. And if you look at what the indicia in this book says is August 1962. So oftentimes they'll hit newsstands a few months before, especially back in the Silver Age, and then they would stamp it the day it came in and went on the shelf. So this little date stamp right here is definitely desirable, adds provenance and just a little character to the book. Now let's talk about the restoration. So the restoration is slight C1. So the C refers to the quality and the 1 refers to the quantity. So C means poor, and it can mean poor for a variety of different reasons. It can be because in this case, I believe it's poor because it's a bad color match. It can also be because of the type of materials used, like a non-archival material. And then quantity 1 is slight, which can mean like some small areas, usually along the spine and along the corner. And that's what I think the color touch on this one is right here. And as you can see, there's a bad color match there with that top corner. So it also possibly could go down the spine a little bit and try to catch it. It could be touched up a couple spots along the spine and maybe even around the staple right there. It's really hard to tell because there's other color breaking creases like up here. You can tell like those creases there, and with these creases there, like it's hard to tell what part of this was actually touched up. You'd probably have to take it out to really see, but it's possible also that very tip right there is color touched, and they may have to just cut that tip off. And so it's kind of unknown exactly the extent of it until you actually crack it out and take a look at it under a raking light, or just open up the cover and see it. I also wanted to show that this book has not been pressed. As you can tell, there is a lot of finger bends and non-color breaking defects throughout the surface of this book. So this book can definitely be improved with a press. There's a lot going on with non-color breaking stuff that can be improved. And then if we look and flip it over on the back, just a really, really sharp back cover. It doesn't, I mean, it can be cleaned. I'm not sure cleaning this would actually improve the grade at all. So I'm trying to catch a good angle here of the spine. There's some color breaking spine stress going on. It can also be improved a little bit. I mean, it can be flattened out. It's not going to affect the grade terribly, but it will present better after a press. And then also on this corner, just it can be flattened out and improved. So as far as the rest of the book and any spots of color touch, I mean, I certainly can't see any. I looked at this under a black light and nothing was flashing. So I do think it's only the spine and that top edge corner there. The rest of the book looks to be in its original condition. So now that you've seen the actual book, let's talk about the possible outcomes for this book. The most predictable outcome is you could send this book in to be pressed, cleaned, and regraded. I believe this book would come back as high as a 7.5. Certainly like a 7.0. Definitely not less than a 6.5. So that's one possibility is just press it and keep the restoration on there. So what's going to happen? It says tape on cover. Tape on cover is not considered restoration. So they've actually stopped putting notes like this on the label. So if you had this regraded, the tape on the cover note would go away. I think that it could come back as high as a 7.5 restored. And there's, with the last sale being $117,000 for a blue label 7.5, a 7.5 restored with a small amount of color touch, as good as this book looks, I think would be the crown jewel of somebody's collection. I mean, it would be such an awesome book to own. So the next option is to send this book in to have the restoration removed, have it pressed and cleaned, and then have it regraded. I think you would actually want to press and clean it first, then remove the restoration, because you don't necessarily want to press it after. If any pieces had to be cut out, you might not want to press it after that because of risk of damage. So I think you would have it pressed and cleaned first, then have the restoration removed, then have it regraded. Also here in the official CGC guide to grading comics, I'll put up on the screen the spine split section. A book can grade as high as a 9.4 with a spine split or as low as a 1.8, and it's completely dependent on the length of the spine split. So let's talk best case scenario, worst case scenario, and likely scenario here for this Amazing Fantasy 15. I think best case scenario, all right, let's put those rose colored glasses on. Best case scenario, it comes back a 6.0 blue. That would mean that you had it pressed and cleaned, you got some really good results getting out some of the finger bends and stuff. It presents a lot better. And then when they actually went to do the color touch removal, it was just the tip on this left top corner and just the tip on the front right corner, and it came back 6.0 blue. Rose colored glasses. Worst case scenario, everything goes terribly wrong. They have to remove a lot of the spine. There's more color touch than was originally thought. I think worst case scenario, this thing comes back a 3.0 blue. A likely scenario, I think this thing comes back a 4.0 or a 4.5. I think that's like the likely. So best case 6.0, worst case 3.0, likely 4.0, 4.5. And we really just don't know until this book is cracked out, until a professional actually evaluates the extent of the color touch, and we'll have a much better idea then. Since I guess the third option is you could just keep it as is. Zero risk whatsoever. You have an amazing book, but why not, get it in its most presentable form, get the highest grade possible. I think it's a worthy risk to do it. So let's talk about the cost. There's two different ways to do this. You can have a third-party presser press and clean this book, do the color touch removal, and then send it into CGC. Most third-party pressers charge about 1.5% of fair market value to do something like that, and most of them will be faster than CGC because it's an Amazing Fantasy 15. They'll likely prioritize a book like this. I mean, how often do you get to work on, one of the most coveted books in a really nice grade? So the other option is to send it to CGC. If you had CGC do it, there's pros and cons. The pros of having CGC do the color touch removal is that there's a little bit of recourse, I believe, if they don't catch it all. Let's say you have them do the color touch removal, they go to grade the book, and it still comes back restored because, you know, there is kind of a left hand, right hand thing going on with CGC pressing and CGC grading. They're not like exactly the same thing. So it is possible that you could have them do the removal and then it still gets a purple label. But at least if you had CGC do it, you would have a little bit of recourse, at least a really good argument to say, hey, I paid you to remove the restoration. You didn't catch it all. Can you either refund me or do it again for free? And I think you would have a good argument in that they would probably honor that. If you have a third party do it and they do the removal, they send it into CGC and it still comes back restored because maybe they missed just a little bit of it, then you're kind of back at square one, and then you have to start the whole process over. So that's one of the benefits of using CGC. If you can find a third-party presser that is an absolute expert in this, then that would, I think, would be the way to go. That's what we're gonna do, and that's what I would like to ask your help on. If you know somebody that's an absolute expert with color touch removal on grails, leave a comment or contact me directly, because if we end up doing it ourselves, I need somebody. I can't recommend anybody myself. I don't have, you know, a lot of experience with third-party people doing this. I have used CGC before for this. I'd like to hear some recommendations from you guys if you have some good recommendations. Again, with the cost, CGC costs 4% of fair market value. As far as fair market value, it's what you declare the fair market value to be based on either what you paid for it, what you think it's worth. It's up to you to declare the value, and the fees are going to be based on that. So CGC will charge a 1% screening fee. All books like this for restoration removal require screening, and it's 1% of the fair market value to screen the book. They don't actually charge you for that unless they don't do the work. So if they do the work, they don't charge you the 1%. If they screen it and reject it and say, you know, we're not going to do this work, then they do charge you that 1%. The reasons that they would reject it is if, in their opinion, it would damage the book so much that it just like completely destroys the book. But it's up to you. You can tell them, hey, I would like you to do the color touch removal as long as it's going to be a 3.0 or better. You can contact them and make a note like that. So the screening's 1%, which gets refunded if they do the work, and then it's 4% of the fair market value to do the restoration removal. And again, that fair market value is what you declare. And then it's another 4% of the fair market value if you want to have them do the pressing and cleaning. And then it's another 4% of the fair market value to have it regraded. So if you were to have them press, clean, remove, and grade this book, it's 12% of the fair market value, depending on what you declare the value to be. It could be as much as like $2,500 or more, depending on what you declare the fair market value to be. So we have it listed for sale now, $45,000 cash or $55,000 in trade. And if we don't get any takers at that price, then we'll go ahead and submit it ourselves, and we'll do a follow-up video, and who knows, maybe we'll have like this major win story, or maybe we break even. I don't know. Either way, it's fun, it's exciting, it's just incredibly awesome to be able to even hold and look at this key. And you know, you learn stuff doing this. Every single time you do this, you're learning, you're getting more experience. So even if we break even, I think it was a worthy endeavor. I think it was a worthy shot, and I'm really excited to see how it turns out. Even if it's for, you know, one of you, somebody out there, I'm rooting for you. I hope you get the 5.5 blue. So to wrap it all up with the AF15, best case scenario 6.0 blue, worst case scenario 3.0 blue, likely scenario 4.0 or 4.5 blue. And with that out of the way, I'd like to talk a little bit more about this new mystery box and the Bryce Comics exclusive limited to 1 copy. I hope you guys are as excited about this as I am. Is it manufactured scarcity? Yes. Does that make it any less cool? That's up for you to decide, but I, for one, think it is incredibly awesome. I'm a huge fan of Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales, and this was an opportunity to make the rarest Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales exclusive in history. And the thing of it is, part of this is that this is my career now. I've stumbled upon this career. It is the job of my dreams. So much so that I never even dreamed that this would be a possible way to make money. So I'm incredibly humbled and grateful to be able to do this for a living. Now, I love comic books. I'm a huge fan. I'm deep into the comic book world. But As this is my career, I'm not an artist, I'm not a writer, I probably will never create my own comic book, so this is my angle. This is my contribution to the community, is selling comics. And so I'm constantly trying to think of innovative ways, fun ways, things that make this hobby fun, because that's what this is. This is comics. It's supposed to be fun. So, don't get too caught up in all of the negativity. There's a ton of negativity in comics. It's supposed to be fun. This is fun to me. I hope it's fun to you. So let's talk more about the details of how this whole box will work. So the way it works is the entire print run is sent to CGC. They corroborate the print run and they will grade and encapsulate 250 trade dress versions, 9.8 or better. I've put a lot of effort into making sure that they feel free to pick some 9/9s and 10s. I mean, they have plenty to choose from. And then they're going to choose one virgin copy, which I also hope that they choose a 9/9 or 10. It's like, come on, just one. There's got to be at least one 9/9 or 10 out of the entire print run of the virgin copies. So why has this never been done before? A lot of people might think, why not just always order, one copy or have these ultra rare copies? And the reason is because you can't order just one copy of a Marvel exclusive, or any publisher for that matter. Different publishers have different minimum order quantities, and Marvel has a huge minimum order quantity. So nobody has ever even come close to limiting it to one copy. And the only way that I was able to make it work was to offer it through this mystery box with all of these awesome grand prizes. And originally I thought, why don't I limit it to 20 copies and give 20 people the chance? It would still be the rarest Marvel exclusive. And I thought, well, no, because then somebody can just one-up me. So I said, what about 10 copies? What about 5 copies? Well, I want to keep one. What about just 2 and I keep one? And then I thought, if I did 2 and somebody one-ups me and does it limited to 1, then it wouldn't be the rare. So it's the rarest one of one. You can't get any more rare than that. And it could be matched. If it works and somebody copies the idea, then mine will be the first one of one. And that's fine too. It doesn't matter. It's just fun, you guys. I just keep it fun. It's got to be fun. It's certainly fun to me, and I hope it's fun to you too. So these books are already in CGC's possession. They should be graded any day now by the time you're watching this, and be on their way back. And then we can start shipping out the mystery boxes. I sat on this for a long time after having put all of the resources and investment into it, because I didn't want you guys to have to wait too long on the pre-sale. The winners will be drawn live on Instagram using random.org as per usual with my mystery boxes. All of the details are over at brycecomics.com, and I've done several mystery box transparency videos that really break everything down, and you can also go watch some of the replays from the previous mystery box draws to see how all of that works. So that's it for this video. I know it was a little bit longer. Thank you for sticking with me all the way to the end, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bryce Comics.
Cut that whole thing out. Let's start the whole thing over. Welcome to Bryce Comics.